Tashidile, and welcome to In Conversation with Tibet TV. This is Sakina Bhatt. For this edition of Conversation, I am joined by a former civil servant who worked as a colonel of various departments in CTA. He was also the former representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Delhi, New York, and Brussels. His name is Tashi Wangdu. Tashi Wangdula, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today.
So Tashi Wangdula, you have served for a very, very long time in CTA and for the cause of Tibet. And now you are here in CTA, you are visiting CTA. So how do you feel about it and what changes have you observed?
Well, after I left, I've been visiting Dharamsala quite regularly to attend the task force meeting. So, I think last time I was here is about just over a year ago. So, during that time, last 8 years, I've seen the changes. So I'm really happy to be back in Dharamsala once again, and this time for the long life, prayer offering of the former civil servants, and I'm happy to see more buildings, and also to meet old friends. And over the years there have been progress. When I joined service in 1966, soon after school, I came to Dharamsala and joined service. And at that time, the offices were at Malrodganj, Mortimer Hall. Mortimer Hall is now the resident of the Indian liaison officer. And his residence is the entire administration. All the offices are in that small house. So, it's grown so much from that little house. Now you have this entire complex we see today. So there has been tremendous progress, and I've been seeing this progress. And so, towards the end of my life, it's very encouraging, and very happy to see.
During your time, this administration was a part of Gandhi Photang, and since 2011, when His Holiness the Dalai Lama withdrew his political power and Sikyong became the political leader, this administration came to be known as Central Tibetan Administration in Tibetan, and it has been 8 years since this transition happened. So how do you see the workings of CTA post the era of Gandhi Photang?
No, actually, Central Tibetan Administration was a term even, before the transfer of, you have to go back. When His Holiness came in 1959, the government was not recognized by Indian government. So all the offices are called councils. That means there's no political, recognition. Council of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And the columns were called directors. Early 80s, the term council changed into departments. Then Department of Information and International Relations of the Central Tibetan Administration of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And we had no objection to that change. And then the head of the departments, also then called columns for the first time. So this change came about in early 80s. Since then, we have, the present head of the department, Collins, Kashak, and the establishment itself, Central Tibetan Administration. Now, since 2011, when the entire political power was transferred to elected leadership, then that last part of His Holiness Dalai Lama was removed. So now what we have is Central Tibetan Administration. And the important, I think, is that, from the beginning, His Holiness wanted to, have a democratic, fully democratic, system. And over the years, he's been pushing towards this. And as you know, there have been, in fact, there have been strong resistance by the people against this kind of, democratic change. But His Holiness has, has decided to have, political leadership elected by people. And people have to take responsibility because, as he has always said, it's the final decision is people. And the Dalai Lama Gandhi Phontra Institution came, historically at a time when it was needed. And, before that, we had kings and the Tibet was, before the Gandhi Phontra institution. And now to continue the movement, obviously people have to take responsibility. And His Holiness felt that it's important to devolve the power. And otherwise, I think it's too much reliance on one person and His Holiness. It's not a healthy, politically, not a healthy system. And we are very happy that transition took place when the last election, 2011, I also participated in that. Masingla won by a big majority, which is good. And I've also said, in my final statement at that time, that I was happy that a new generation has taken over the responsibilities, which it should be. And, personally, I'm very happy that, because I've known him since his student days. I'm glad that, someone like him has taken over. It's a generation, you have to, you can't stick to the old people. And it has to be generational change. And I think it was very timely because, we have His Holiness still, although, the moral authority of His Holiness, and the young generation taken over. And I think the transition went, very smoothly. And I'm very happy.
Like you mentioned earlier, you said that when this administration was built, you actually saw it.
Yeah.
So like initially, when the administration was built, like how many staffs were there? Can you give an estimation?
Or at that time, there were only five departments. It was, I think, the biggest was home. It was home, religion, education, and Chisi.
What is that?
Foreign Affairs.
Foreign Affairs. Okay.
And Chisi was merged with Delhi Bureau. And so security became a full-fledged department. And then later on, I think information, it was not international relations. Then I think the finance. The last one was health. Health was, I think, formed in the, if I remember correctly, in the late 70s or early 80s.
So how many staffs were there altogether?
If I'm not, mistaken, in Dharamsala, I would think about altogether 50, 60.
Including all the departments. Okay, so you have worked almost your entire life for the cause of Tibet. You have especially worked as a diplomat for foreign affairs of CTA. So as a member, also being a member as the negotiating task force, what developments do you see for the issue of Tibet in the international platform?
Oh, there's been, big development. Because when I became the Colin for International Relations, I think there were about five offices, for Office of Tibet. It was Delhi, Kathmandu, New York, Switzerland. When I became in 1984, when I took, and I was sitting in that chair, there were about four officers of Tibet. And now we have 11. Now, of course, South America also. So South Africa was not open, but we were preparing for that. So, from 4 to 12 officers abroad, I think it's 12, should be 12. Within that period, shows, how much is. In terms of contact, when I took over here, my first visit to United States and Europe, we have no access to the foreign ministries. No one will meet us. Even in United States, I remember, going to the House and the Senate, and we had to wait in the corridors. Okay. And if somebody is coming by, then we stop and try to introduce and say a few words. And same with Europe. No foreign ministry officials. I met some officials in restaurants, in tea, coffee place, coffee shops and restaurants. Okay. And they would make very clear that they are meeting in the unofficial position and so on. Within a few years, all the doors open, and State Department is the open door. White House is an open door. We could go to these, and in Europe, same thing. And so that has been the progress. Recognition of His Holiness as a leader, which is now a world leader. And the other thing also is our people in Tibet. When China started to open up Tibet from 79 onwards, they've been gradual. Early 80s, Tibet was open quite widely. Foreign journalists allowed to go. Our delegations went. And the people in Tibet, showed their determination, expressed their aspirations quite openly. And that also, I think, helped the world to inform the world that Tibet issue is not as a dead issue, is an old issue, but is a live issue, and yeah. So I think all that factors under His Holiness helped to paint the larger picture of Tibet, and that was very helpful. Yeah.
So you were one of the first Tibetans to get modern education. When you came here to India, you were sent to Wilbur Allen in Missouri. So tell us about those times, like if you can remember anything, and also like what did that bring a change? How did that bring a change in your academic life?
Yeah. No, as His Holiness has always said, not even other resettlement, but first thing he did, soon after arriving, set up a school. In 59, early 60, there were not many children. The biggest transit camp was in Misomari in Assam. The first group, people refugees who were coming from that area. So the Tibetan administration at that time collected all the children in Misomari first. So my parents came through that route. So I was in Misomari.
Okay. How many children were there at that time?
It started with 30, but if you look at our record, official record, it'll say that first school started in Missouri with 50 students. Okay. So 30 from the transit refugee camp, and the others were His Holiness bodyguards who were, in the early 20s, and then government officials, young government officials, were also, added to the school program. So altogether, it was 50. After school, I came straight to Dharamsala. There were very few, English-speaking people. So people like us, were quite useful at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So someone who has worked in CTA for a very long time, do you have any advice for the younger generation staffs who are presently working in CTA?
No, I've been saying, firstly, to join the administration. I mean, I feel it's a duty.
Okay.
as a Tibetan to serve. And secondly, it's a privilege to be able to serve, to have that opportunity. And thirdly, I feel very strongly that people who serve, join the service, it's a sacrifice. Because if you are thinking about yourself or your future, anyone in CTA would do better materially. They can do business, they can, join other things and earn more money. In life, money is not issue. Serving in the administration, you don't lose anything. Government is not building, it's people. And people who join, firstly, when they join, they have that commitment, that determination, willing to sacrifice something. Now, if they continue, at the end of it, at the end of the life, like people like me, when you look back, have you lost anything, personally, materially? I have no regrets. So I hope that people who are serving, the young people, and I personally feel very happy that to see young people like you and working, because it's a generation, it's a generation shift. It has to be that, and that kind of continuity, and also sends a very strong signal to, apart from us, to the Chinese government. They think that after His Holiness, will collapse, will disappear. But we have to tell them, it's not. It's a generation fight, and the young people are joining in, and if not even in the central government, but administration, but at the local level, abroad, Tibetan associations. Now all young people are coming up and taking over. So I feel very hopeful, optimistic. But it's a long struggle. So in the administration, my wish, I hope is that people who are serving, they will continue to serve, and that's important.
Teshla, it was a great pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for speaking with Tibet TV.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode of In Conversation with Tibet TV.